Okay. Well, I can
Right.
see
And we're recording. So thanks everyone. So this is the El Jolgorio tasting. We've got Casa Cortes, Matt and Monica on the line. Um, Thanks a lot for joining us. I know for me, I think it's true of most of the people on the call. There's a few that are a lot more into mezcal for a lot longer than me, but um, most of us started with whiskey, right? We're in Canada,
Mm.
one of the largest whiskey making regions of the world. Um, and it's only about, I want to say, a year ago that I started onto mezcal, and very recently, thanks to Neil, I got to try a handful of El Jorgorio, and as soon as I tried them, I said, let's try to do a tasting with this stuff because it's mind-blowingly good. I mean, I love mezcal in general, but the few that I've tried from El Jorgorio have really blown me away. So I'm really excited that we were able to make this happen tonight, and I'll pass it to you, Monica, to kind of introduce Casa Cortez and take us through this lineup.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. Very, very exciting to hear that Canada has shifted to mezcal now. It has been a drink that, has been made for a very long time now. The family, as he was saying, I am part of Casa Cortes, so I'm the brand ambassador for the house. It is a family's business. Fortunately, we've been able to kind of keep that history and tradition going for the last over 100 years. So it all kind of dates back to my grandpa's side. He's a fourth generation mezcalero, Jose Cortes. We're from the small town of Santiago Matatlan in Oaxaca, about an hour away from the city. And his great grandfather started producing in that town back in the 1840s. So it's a long history of mezcal tradition and mezcal production within the family. My uncles are still producing. My cousins, some of my cousins are producing as well. So they're fifth and sixth generation mezcaleros still going on. And yeah, so it's three lines, Agave de Cortés, Soledad, and today's star of the show, El Folgorio. Everyone, I think, worldwide is a lot more familiar with El Folgorio. It is the one that houses all the wild and semi-wild species, with the exception of the espadín, but we can talk about that one later. And the first one you'll be trying right now is the Kerwinsky. So this one is from, should be Don Chucho. I'm not sure what edition it is, but it is most likely Ignacio Parada, right? Three. Okay. So edition number three. He's from Soquitlan.
Yeah, it is. I can confirm it's Ignacio Parada, the master distiller.
Yeah, so Ignacio Parada, he was actually our first partner within El Folgorio to bring out those batches. Like I said, it's been primarily my family, the family, and then we started introducing other families. Don Chucho's being one of those first families that we started partnering up with outside of our own. And that's who we brought out El Folgorio with back in 2009, end of 2009, beginning of 2010. So honestly, his like record is incredible. He does things like the Karwinski, he's done the Pestate, he's done Mexicano, he's done Barril, he does the Jabalí as well. So these black bottles are part of what we say the special edition collection. It's special annual releases that we choose depending on the availability of the maguey. They tend to be a lot more scarce and like not easy to find. So that's why we kind of house these under the special edition collection. So this is part of the, obviously the Kerwinsky. We actually called it Cenizo. So the first batches that ever came out were actually called Cenizo. But Durango, the state of Durango, has kind of like a trademark now for the word Cenizo. So other states can't really call that, Oaxaca being one of them. So we have to call it back to its really like the species that it's housed on, which is a Kerwinsky. So this is one of the special batches, one of the annual releases. And I want to share some of the pictures. Let me know if you guys can see this. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Second, un segundo.
Is it letting you share the screen there? I might have to make you host.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, so now you're host, and I think If you
Okay.
have to, if you have to mute people, it'll be on you to do that now. I don't have.
There, you guys can see it, right? Well, something.
Not yet, no. Now we do.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just brief history of the family. So first generation, second, third, fourth. That's picture of my grandpa. Yeah, fifth and sixth generation. Like I said, one of the very few left that are 100% Oaxacan owned, 100% family owned. One of my uncles who is
I
the
just see
co-founder.
loading. I just see loading now
Oh,
on the
I
screen.
see it. Oh.
We saw it at first, and then it went blank.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
A quick question before like we get any further into tastings, like for the new people to like mezcals and stuff, like it's always been something I've been interested in. As far as like the tasting, is it kind of like whiskey as far as like when you're tasting it? Like are you supposed to like pass it around on the palate kind of thing? Any that we should be pouring ahead of time?
Yeah.
I'm just curious
We always
about
say you start with a little sip, very tiny sip to just kind of introduce it into your mouth. So it's not like a shock because it is a very high ABV, especially the ones that you guys are drinking tonight. All of those are, with the exception of the tepestate, I believe all of those are above 50. So,
That's
it is going to be a shock to your palate. So I do recommend taking a little sip of it first, very, very tiny, just to kind of get your palate ready. And then that first kind of like a little bigger sip, but not as big either. You want to swirl it around a little, and then as soon as it's going down, exhale through the mouth so you can let the alcohol kind of evaporate faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I saw in the chat somebody asked, is there any of them that we should be pouring ahead of time, like to give them a chance to open up, or just kind of pour out as sample bottles and we should be fine with that?
Yeah, we can do the next one, which will be the tepestate.
What's that? Sorry?
We can do the next one, which will be the tepestate.
Yeah.
I do recommend you leave a little after we've tasted through each one. You leave it behind, and that way when you go back, you'll be able to see like what differences you find between when you first initially tried it and then when you come back to it. Don't let it sit there for an hour later or during the whole night. But yeah, once we've done the whole thing, I do recommend you leave a little in your cups, and then you can come back to it and see kind of like the difference of how much it does also open up and change.
Okay. Somebody else was asking, can we pour them all and identify an order ahead of time?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be the Karwinski, then the Tepestate, the Arroqueño, not the TSM, just like the black paper label.
We have two of the Arroqueño. We have Todos Santos, and then there's just a regular Arroqueño 16.
Yeah, so that one, the paper label one. Then the Tobasiche TSM, Todos Santos Tobasiche, and then the Arroqueño Todos Santos.
Make a say that.
Sorry, can you go over that one again?
Hey,
Yeah.
Moni.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think they can see the paper. They can't tell which
No,
one's
we
paper
just
label.
have like
They're just in
sorry.
little sample
Of course,
we
bottles.
have kind of a
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna post it on the
Yes, of
on
course.
the chat here. So
Yeah,
if you guys
Sorry
want to
about
go to
that.
the chat for the
No, that's of course, yeah. So yes, 16 edition then, if that's what it is for the Arroqueño, and then the TSM Tobasiche, and then the TSM Arroqueño.
Karwinski.
So that should be first edition. The first edition of the Tobasiche and Arroqueño to the very end.
Yeah, I've got that posted in the
Yeah.
chat here so everyone can refer to it.
Todos Santos.
Yeah.
What about the
On finit avec la Rocchino 55.
what about the Mescaleros one? Where's that one fit in?
That's TSM. That's the
TSM.
Todos Santos.
Okay.
Let me see that. Let me see what did we put on the chat.
Okay, whiskey.
Okay, yeah. Okay. I got mine lined up now.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
So we'll try the
for it, Monica.
Tepestate first, the Kerwinsky first, then the Tepestate, then the Arroqueños edition 16, I believe is what someone said. Then the first edition of Tuasiche, and then the first edition of the Todos Santos Arroqueño.
Nick, okay. Take le
Le Arroqueño Santos.
Aricanos
Mhm.
55.
All right, take it away, Monica.
Alrighty. Yeah, sorry, these are just a few pictures of just like the harvest that goes on with many of our batches of whether it's espadín, whether it's Madre Cliché, which you can see on the left picture there. And okay, so some of the so I want to show you guys a picture of Don Chucho, who is the one that is making now this one. So this is Don Chucho. That's Sopitlan. So this is one of my favorite towns to kind of drive into. And I always feel like that's sort of what it gets reflected on the mezcals. They're very complex. His palenque probably sits at a lower elevation than the rest of the other palenques. It's about 4,000, 4,500 feet above sea level. It's, as you can see, like the bottom portion of it is very tropical. So there's a lot of banana trees growing there, mango trees, palm trees. It looks very lush green. And then all the mountains that surround this town are all full with these cacti, these very tall cacti. It looks very desert-like. So he, along with his son, Jose, they're the ones that work the palenque. It's all open air, natural fermentation. He uses copper pot stills, obviously, and sorry, it's all artisanal that we're trying today. And yeah, so he tends to sometimes cover, for example, his tinas with blankets during like the fermentation process to prevent it from coming to a complete stop. And yeah, so this Perwinsky part of it's what we call cenizo, but it can also be kind of like a madre cliché blanco. So it's going to have those characteristic notes that mostly all Kerwinskis have. For me, it's always like very herbaceous, very green. You get some of like those peppery notes on it. It is a lot more oily than just like an espadín that you would normally have. It's a lot heavier. It feels like a lot more complex, just even on the nose. I don't know if you guys have tried it or sipped on it already.
Yeah, I love you say herbaceous. Like I get it's really grassy, right? Salty, peppery,
Yeah,
and it has a really nice feel to it.
it's got a nice finish. It's been a while since I've had the Kerwinsky, but from what I remember, yeah, very nice. Almost kind of dry at the end, but it lingers so much after you've drank it. It doesn't like completely just wash away. So if you are using the same glasses, I mean, I don't think any of you guys are, since you guys were asking if you guys can pour it ahead of time. But if you are using the same glass, I do recommend you rinse it because you'll still get those lingering notes on the next mezcal that you'll try. So he uses spring water as well here. Tio Pedro, who will taste after, I think, with his tepstate, they're all spring water, open air, also natural fermentation. So tepestate, I think, is also part of that same kind of like green, grassy, floral kind of notes to it, but this is a lot more green peppers to me. It's a lot brighter in a sense, the tepestate. And can someone confirm that it's Tio Pedro Vasquez?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
I've got the bottles. So this is Rafael Mendez Cruz.
Oh, so then it's not Tio Pedro. Okay, so it's Rafael. That one is also a very special one then, because that Maestro Mescalero unfortunately passed away early 2021. So that is probably one of his like last batches that people will have access to. Depending on the edition that you have. But yeah,
I,
that
I
is it.
got a lot of more like citrus notes on the.
Yeah, I was gonna say if it's Raphael's, so it's now that's San Luis del Rio. So it's a completely different part of Oaxaca. So from the city to Zoquitlan, it's about an hour, 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes. Southwest. San Luis del Rio is southeast. Very different landscape. It's not at all what you see like in this picture. There's a lot of espadín actually growing there that people have cultivated now. It's, I think, become one of the towns after Mazatlan that is the most um, that is like heavily producing and harvesting espadines. So what you'll primarily see from that town is espadín, but you can also find tepesates there. You can also find a little bit of like jabalí, just very, very little, and some tobala. So his the palenque there. They've got mango trees growing around there. They've got plum trees growing around the palenque. He uses river water. He used to, right? River water, and when the levels were too low, then he used spring water. So it is a little bit different. And this cooking process is also a little different. So whereas most of the palenques will use these underground, they all use underground oven pits, and they essentially roast the agaves. Here, though, they start the fire, and then after a day, once the rocks have accumulated all the heat, they kind of put it out with water. So it ends up steaming a little in this underground oven pit, whereas the other palenques, the fire will eventually die out after having no oxygen, right? So it is a little different. They don't add water, and it's more like a dry kind of roasting step. And then for San Luis del Rio, it's more like a steaming kind of process. So yes, I also find that his has a little more some kind of like stone fruit notes to it. Definitely has those green pepper notes to it as well. I think that's very characteristic of what tepesates taste like. I don't know. What else are you guys finding on the tepesate? Don Rafa. I wish I had a tepesate right now. That Don Rafa.
Yeah, there's some folks on
Okay.
the chat there, Monica. If you look there,
Oh,
that
okay.
posting their notes,
Let's see.
minerality, orange,
Mhm.
like a lot of citrus notes that keep coming up. The pepper,
Let's see. Okay.
vegetable, not the spice, right? Um, fruitiness.
Uh-huh.
The day before was it was overwhelmingly green bell peppery because what I've had was, and I thought it was the one agave I didn't like. This is very
Mm-hmm.
balanced. It's very herbaceous. It's very mineral. There's a lot of sugar sweetness to it and stone fruits.
Mm-hmm.
The green
Mm-hmm.
pepper is definitely there, but it's extremely well
It's
balanced.
subtle. Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah.
usually, like I've had the pistachio mezcals, it was overpowering, like hit you over the head with the pepper. This is great.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt will also say that's probably one of his favorite tepesates, the rapas, just because it is a very balanced kind of tepesate. It's not overwhelmingly, like you just said, it's not overwhelmingly green peppery. Um, let's see, agree, have some sort of lactic note. Okay, with all of those, he knows. Yeah. I mean, and what else was also interesting about Don Rafa and the way he would normally make his tepes. Yeah, so sometimes like even because they've had obviously a ton of sometimes we're talking his was actually it's probably one of the bigger kind of palenques. So whereas the normal ones kind of hold 9 tons to 10 tons of agave, Don Rafa's it can hold up to 14 tons of agave. So they'd obviously take some time kind of going through the whole batch of agave and cooking it, I mean, and chopping it and then putting it into the fermentation tank. So whenever he did roast it with espadín, because that's the only way that he would be able to roast that tepestate, because it's not a lot of it, he'd probably leave that until the very end. So it does after a while get some kind of mold, right? So Maybe that's where some of that like little funk also kind of comes into. Because you definitely cook that with espadins.
So this one's a 25-year agave. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
And that's typical for that plant?
Yeah, that's so tepasates are some of the ones that take the longest to fully mature. I've always kind of seen it 20 plus years, upwards of 20 plus years. They're very tough agaves. They like to grow on like the slopes and like the hills, like on the side of the hills. So they're kind of hanging at 90 degrees, and that's just the way they are. That's the way they like to grow. They can survive in that kind of aspect. And obviously the fact that it's so stressed out, I think gives it that kind of sweetness that you also find in most of these tepasates. They have for me some of the prettiest quiotes. So the quiotes are the flower stalks that grow once the plant has come to its full maturity. They're like super bright and yellow, and they look. It's just very picturesque. And when you drive down the road to get to these palenques, especially for San Luis del Rio, driving towards San Luis del Rio or Sopitlan, or La Chiqui, you'll see like these hills and mountains just sometimes kind of peppered with this quiote, the yellow quiotes. They're really nice. But yes, they take a very long time to grow. We have, for example, started um, a sustainability program, nursery program, where we're planting some tepasates in certain towns that would normally have tepasates. And we'll see. We obviously started this about 4 or 5 years ago, so they're very young. We are predicting that they won't take us long because we are nurturing them and we are kind of providing a little more attention to them than they would get in the wild. So maybe they'll take a little less time to fully mature, but we won't know yet. So I'll let you guys know 10 years from now what the status is.
Send us
It
a
is aged
bottle.
in the dirt.
Send us a bottle.
I'll tell the TOs to send you guys bottles. Yeah.
So just to clarify that, like again, like we had the same kind of question. Like so for the Tepesate 25 year, it's 25 years is the age of the plants being used, the agave plants being used to make the mezcal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I I always say that, and this is just my opinion, obviously, but there isn't really anything like mezcal in that sense. I mean, all other spirits really have the raw material or the main ingredient in it take a much shorter time. It's still obviously a lot of work with these other spirits, but it isn't anything compared like mezcal in this case. This is just the agave plant. We're not talking about the amount of time it takes to go through the whole harvesting process and then the cooking process and then the mashing process and then the fermentation process and then the distillation. Um, so yeah, so things like even if it is grown in the wild, or if you are cultivating it, it's a lot of time. People think like espadín is just you just plant it and then you just let it grow there. It takes a very long. It takes years of maintenance, years of taking care of it. So it's a lot of money and time and energy and really passion. That's why we always say like the master mezcaleros do this also for the love of it because not a lot of people would be able to endure this. And to properly call a person a maestro, I will never call someone that maybe takes like a year sabbatical and goes there and tries this out. It's something that the maestro mezcalero honestly does this 365 days a year. Like whether they're out, or they're in the palenque making it, or they're out in the fields taking care of the agaves, looking after the baby agaves, cleaning up the fields of these agaves. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot that goes on.
So
But
so
those
we have the
25
chance.
years are just the agave.
So we have the chance to try 25 years. Question for you: what is the maximum?
I've heard not with us, not with our mezcaleros, but I've heard with other because I do obviously like to try other mezcals as well. I think the most I've heard is 31 years for Tepesabe. but I've never come across that except for that one time.
Thank you. And that's it.
Mhm.
Like, I guess like the Tepazate, as you said before, I believe is one of the fussier and ones that take the longest to mature.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's a question here that says, are any of these wild harvested, partially wild harvested? Yeah, so what we would consider like semi-wild are the ones that you grow in nurseries and then you take them out into these hills, um, and not look after them until you obviously go back at some point closer to the time period that you'll know it'll come to full maturation and see that it's ready and then harvest it. But otherwise, it's like they leave them there to fend off for themselves. That's what the mescaleros would consider like semi-wild because you took care of them at the beginning when they were babies, and then you just put them back into the hills and you just let them do their thing, as opposed to planting them in a field that you're constantly observing and taking care of. So they will get damaged or stolen. Yes, there's always some worries. I don't think there's as much now. There was a period of time when a lot of agaves were being stolen, but mainly it was when they were young. So when they're anywhere from obviously a few months to up to a year and a half, they're a lot more susceptible to being stolen just because you're able to more easily yank them out from the ground. Once they've passed that like 2.5 year mark, it's just like, so it's a lot more work than you'd really want to invest in to steal the plants. So no, we haven't really heard of that happening lately, but it did happen. I think it was the period of like 2017 to 2018 that was kind of going on a lot in Oaxaca. Okay, so you guys tried the tepestate. You can now try the arroqueño. So that's 16 edition, Tío Pedro. This is Tío Pedro. It's probably he is our oldest mezcalero in the group. At 74 years old, and of course he might be turning 75 soon. A wealth of knowledge, this guy. We call him corazón con patitas in Spanish, which is like the heart with little legs. And he's just like, he and I have, he and I have like a very, very special relationship. I think of him as my grandpa just because of his age, but just his heart. And whenever you go to the Palenques, and if you guys are ever in Oaxaca, let us know. But he's um, just a very warm, quiet kind of soul. So he's always happy, always eager to meet people, but and happy to see someone try his mezcals. So he does the arroqueño, which is this one. His when I first came back into the family business to kind of help out, he was honestly his mezcal, so this arroqueño, not specifically this batch, but definitely his arroqueño was the one that blew my mind. I was just like, oh my God, this is what mezcal can be, because I was a lot younger. I didn't drink mezcal as much as I do now. But that one for some reason stood out. It was like it was so complex, but also well-rounded. You got a lot of different notes. It tends to be sweet, just like arroqueños in general. So they're like the big agaves. They are part of the Americana family. And so if you've heard of Sierra Rudo, if you've heard of Sierra Negra, of Coyote, that's part of the Americana family. So these guys are huge, upwards of like 6 feet in height, and then obviously 6 feet in like just like your arm span, right? So they're really big, tend to be sweet. They're known as the king of the agaves, and so his arroqueño has always stood out, and his is part of that special edition collection as well that comes out once a year. Anywhere from like 16 to 18 years for these agaves to mature. So it still take a long time as well. And yeah, they're just, before I say anything, I want to see what you guys, let me open the comments again. What you guys are tasting here.
I'm surprised by the sweetness.
Yeah. There's this, okay, let's see. 13-year and 25-year ago. I don't know what the 13 would be.
Yeah, I'll
There's
I'll
two,
look
there's
into
two,
it, Colin.
two numbers there?
Yeah, I'll have a look at it, Colin.
Okay.
Oh, why the two numbers? Yeah, I don't know if there's a mix of two different agaves or something.
No, these are all single varietal.
Sorry, what? Eric Lorenz here. Hi, Monica. How are you?
Hi, Eric. Where are you?
Nice to
There
see
you
you.
I know. I haven't seen you in so long.
Here I am. Well, I think. I don't know. Hey, question. Wait. So sorry. What was the question that the other guest asked?
Yeah, he's saying there's a 13 and 25-year. I think there's like a 13 year, I guess, description.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on it
Yeah.
during the tasting.
Okay.
After the tasting, I'll work with Eric.
Okay.
On
Cool.
the bottle.
to get it figured out.
On the bottle, I've got. Is this edition? Which edition is this? The edition
one
I
that
have
we're
is.
tasting today, like the one that Colin's referring to, I'm not sure, but the one that we're tasting today is edition 23.
Oh, okay. Got it. Wait, Tepestate or Arroqueño?
The
I think you're on
Arroqueño,
Arroqueño.
the
Yeah, you're on.
Arroqueño, we're doing edition 7.
Oh, okay, got it. So the Don Rafa, that's what I'm holding in my hand, and 25 years is the answer that I have here too, and that's what should be available in the market.
Okay. Figure it out. Thank you.
You bet. And also, I've got to run, but I wanted to let you guys know, all of these or additions from the same mezcaleros are, except for the Todos Santos Arroqueño, that one is sold out. There is one case available of the Todos Santos Tobaciche, available for purchase by a liquor store of your choice to ship, but BSW, Zinn, and craft sellers are the ones probably best suited to purchase and ship to you. And there's one case left of the Todos Santos Tobaciche, 4 cases available of the Arroqueño, and 4 cases of the Agave Karwinskii, and then the Tepestate, just 1 case.
Beautiful. Thanks, Eric.
Just so you guys know. And I'll get out of your hair now and mute myself. Nice to see you guys.
For bourbon drinkers.
Hey, Eric,
You're
Yeah.
not getting crucified.
Hey.
how's it going?
Hey, Jared. Good to see you, pal. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm
Real
buying your
good.
products.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that. Nice to see your beautiful face.
You as well.
It's been forever since I've seen you and given you a hug in public.
Yeah, it's been a while.
In person or in public, either one. Or in private.
Good to see you.
Enjoy the rest of the tasting, guys.
All right. Thank you. All right. So yeah, that Arroqueño. Yes, I don't know if you guys caught this. There's always some little like banana on the nose for the Arroqueño to me.
Banana's so good. That's such
Yeah. Some like
salty
a
bananas.
banana thing on it.
Yeah.
And then what else have you guys, I think you guys have any other questions here? Yeah. Yeah, on the nose, yeah, definitely the type of stuff would be a lot more fragrant. Yeah, I also agree. That one always has like a very just fake personality.
I think this would be a good one to introduce somebody new to mezcal.
Yeah, it's softer. It's softer than the other two, right?
Mhm.
And so it's a lot more introduction friendly.
It is. It's which is funny because it is a little easier, I guess, for people that to just kind of take it in. But once you've drank a lot of mezcals, it is one of the ones that has a lot more going on, and you start picking all these subtle like notes in that mezcal once you've drank or become an alcoholic as much as I have with mezcal. Yeah, it's a very interesting one.
Connoisseur, connoisseur.
No, yeah, okay. Thanks. Very interesting one. So the next one would be the Toasiche. And this, as you guys are seeing on the label, it's part of the Todos Santos Mezcaleros edition. I'm still surprised people can still find it because, as Matt was, I think, saying, it is 1, 2 editions that have come out and have not been replicated. And it came out as so that first, we always have this festivity that we throw around Day of the Dead. And Day of the Dead is a big, big celebration for Oaxacan culture and Oaxacans in Oaxaca. And we would always do this event called the Todos Santos Mezcaleros. And we started planning for it in early 2020. Realized that, by like mid-March, that we most likely were not going to be able to host that event because due to the pandemic. And the November before that, in 2019, my grandmother passed away. My grandmother married to my grandfather, the Cortes. And she's obviously the other half of the reason we're all here. And so we said, okay, what's the best way for us to share with the people that would have come and also pay tribute to a very important figure in the family. And so we came out with this first edition, the Todos Santos Mezcaleros first edition, which included the Arroqueño and the Tobasiche. So the Arroqueño is also produced by Tio Pedro here, and the Tobasiche is produced by Tio Pablo. So they were the 2 mezcaleros that the family thought embodied my grandma's spirit the most. That like very warm and hospitable and just, you come in and you have to eat something before you leave, whether there's any food available, like we'll make ends meet, it's okay. So we said, okay, this is the way we want to pay tribute to her. And so we brought out those two editions in the purple color for the Arroqueño and then the orangey color for the Wasiche to symbolize the flowers that are used predominantly in Day of the Dead, which are the marigolds or cempasúchil, and then the cresta de gallo. I do not know how you say that in English, but it's called cresta de gallo. So it's like this purple flower. And so, yeah, so the Arroqueño had been stored for a while. I believe it was done in 2017 or 2018. I can't quite remember it accurately. It should say it on the bottle though, when it came out. And so, yeah, so it's been resting for quite a bit now. I think it's a lot more, even more well-rounded than that first Arroqueño you guys had. And the Tobasiche.
If you can I think there's someone that needs to
Oh,
be
yeah,
let
yeah.
in, and I gave you the host.
Done it. Yeah, got it. Yeah. And then the Tobasiche, which is done by Tio Pablo here, is part of the Kerwinsky family as well. So Ejutla is known for a lot of Kerwinsky. So they do a lot of barril. He does a lot of obviously there's a lot of espadín as well, mexicano, and the next one would be tobaciche. It's not a lot. It's not available as much as the others, which is why it normally does come out in a special edition as well. But this one was specifically also selected for just like the length of time that it had already been resting. And it's just, that's like a phenomenally good tobaciche. I think it's probably one of my favorite tobaciches that I've tried so far. It's just also very smooth. It's got those herbaceous also kind of notes to it that you find, like I said, typical of the Karwinskis. But it's also got this like sweet, what kind of fruit would it it's got some sweetness to it as well. So the other thing I have to highlight about Tobaciches here and his mezcal is this town is known for using a refrescadera, which is a slightly different kind of still than the copper pot stills that are normally used throughout all of Oaxaca. So it essentially kind of does a 1.5 distillations in just one run, as opposed to the 2 distillations that the copper pot stills make. So they do come out with a little more of like a kick to it. They tend to be a little bit higher in ABV, and if you were to see it even like in a clear bottle, they have a slight hue to them, like a greenish, yellowish hue to it because of this type of distillation.
Sorry, can you describe the still again?
Yeah, so it's, if you can imagine your copper pot still, I don't know if you guys have seen like the copper pot stills that get used in mezcal, but there's like the steel case around the top part where water comes in, and so it kind of kickstarts the condensation process. But before it can really go up, it also has a plate inside, so it essentially brings it back down before shooting it back into the coils. So it does a 1.5 distillations in just one run. So they only pass it through once. They don't do the whole 2 times.
So it's just one pass through the still, not quite double distilled, kind of like 1.5 distilled.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
It's not. It's when you guys get the peanut butter. Yeah. You get peanuts, like, yeah. I even get some cacao on the nose for that one. Oh, so let me pull up let me see if I can pull up the still to show. You can kind of see it back here. So this part here is what you would normally see on a typical like copper pot still. This is like copper pot still that you normally see. And this is the steel case around it. Let me definitely pull it up. Let me see. Let me stop sharing. I hope it should be in one of the. So this is the Palenque actually for this Tobaciche. See if we can have a picture of the still. Oh, here. Can you guys see my screen?
No, not yet.
Oh, think so. Huh? Okay, let me share again. Okay,
Oh, I see your screen now.
okay. So there's a steel case around this top part of the still that would normally just sit on its own. So this is the steel case around it. And so water flows in there. Then there's a plate inside it as well. So it starts doing the condensation process in this part of the still. before it actually gets to the coils, whereas where the normal like condensation process usually takes place. So by the time it gets there, it's kind of done like like in general, a 1.5 distillations in just one run. And this is very typical of Ejutla and some parts of Miahuatlan as well. It's just the kind of still that these mezcaleros use. Very traditional for them. It's just the way they've made it. Yeah. And those, I think, they're the only cookies that we have. That's still. Yeah. So now you guys have tried the arroqueño as well, I believe, right?
Yeah, I've gone through all 5.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like the Tobas Tiche.
Tosiche.
Tobas, yeah, that one and the Tepestate, they blew me away. The last Aeroqueño, the Todos Santos one,
Mm-hmm.
that one was absolutely amazing. And yeah, so those are my 3 favorite ones from the tasting. I think Eric said they still had some Tobasiche. I think that's the one I might get a bottle of.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah. It's crazy. There's still some for sale. I got to make my way up to Canada then.
Yeah, Canada, there's a good selection out west, and I don't think people have clued in completely yet.
Both,
One
yeah.
of the questions I
Both
had,
arroqueños are banana. Yes, they are.
yeah, no, they taste very similar, just that the last one is bigger,
It's
right?
yeah.
It's fuller, the flavors are more in your face. The first one was very kind of smoother and more mild, and
Mm-hmm.
I think a few people thought it would be good to introduce someone just because it's a little more approachable. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the people in this group like the in your face mezcals a little better. But one question that I had, Monica, if you don't, you talked a little bit about it through your presentation, but what's the relationship with Casa Cortes? You've got 3 lines on the website, right?
Yes.
You talk about working directly with these mezcaleros. How does the relationship work, right? How does a bottle get from these mezcaleros to Casa Cortes and then to the rest of the world?
Yeah. So so they all have like a different segment. Agave de Cortes is primarily focused on introducing people to Espadín and Espadín from Matatlan. Because that actually is our flagship brand. That's the one that kind of started this whole project altogether. So that's the one we first introduced to the world as a way to kind of bring focus back to Espadín and give it a spin to what people sip it on its own. Nuestra Soledad is Jolgorio came after that, which is obviously what you guys have tried, where all the smaller batches, semi-wild, wild varieties live. It was a way for us to celebrate like the different varieties of agave within just the state of Oaxaca, which is the state with the most varieties of agave. And also the celebration of like the different customs and traditions that the different towns have within the state. It is the same state, but honestly, when you drive from town to town, they're not super close to each other, and they all do vary in terms of like just their customs and even like the indigenous language that we speak, which is Zapoteco. It's very slightly. So it was a celebration of that. Obviously, smaller batches because of the nature of the plants and the availability of them plays a role in that as well. Nuestra Soledad was a way for us to kind of shift the focus back to Espadín and show people that it's just as interesting and just as complex as some of these wild varieties. But obviously doesn't take as long to fully get these bottles and be able to drink them. So I think it's a good middle ground for beginners and also experienced drinkers to drink throughout that line because it is very different. That's obviously much more of a terroir-driven concept. Um, and all of these families behind it. So all of the mezcaleros for Nuestra Soledad make some batches of El Jolgorio. Will depend obviously on what the town normally has, what the maestro has normally worked with. But all of them, so there'll be some overlap between Nuestra Soledad and El Jolgorio. The way we've been able to partner with these maestros, it's not like we'll buy one batch here and then we won't see the maestro for, I don't know, a year or two until we need another batch. No, it's honestly been like a happy happenstance that happens. Rolando, who's a co-founder, and my uncle, who's in charge of kind of like that seeking out the mezcaleros, and who's the one that was the first point of contact between the mezcaleros and Casa Cortes. The way he was introduced to all these mezcaleros was more like I just randomly met this person, this mezcalero who makes this amazing mezcal. We have to try it. And there has to be some kind of, we've always said some link between their ethos and our ethos. Our whole ethos has always been to preserve the culture of mezcal and help the communities behind it. And they have to also see that what they should be putting out is also the best that they can possibly put out. There shouldn't be any corners that we should be cutting because it will obviously affect the way the overall category is seen. And so I think it is very much a union of what we both believe to be the best that we can do and bring out the best mezcal that we possibly can. And so it's these partnerships that we really build with the mezcaleros. So now when they finally jump onto our side and come to Casa Cortes, it's more of a okay, let's see where do you need some help? What can we be there for? Whether it's the updating certain parts of the palenques, whether it's for, medical expenses. It's definitely like a going hand in hand with these mezcaleros and supporting those families because it's not just one person, the mezcalero being there, right? It's normally now like the sons as well. Chucho, for example, who I said was the first one that we partnered with El Jolgorio. His son was here in the U.S. when we started working with him, and he was able to go back to Oaxaca, and he has now grown a family there and works with his dad as well because of the support that we've been able to accomplish and the support that we get from the importers as well. It's very much a teamwork and a relationship that gets built over trust and over a lot of years. The newest family we added was the one that makes the Ancestral, and that was in 2021. So before that, I was actually Don Pablo, and that he joined the Casa Cortes family in 2017. So it is a very long relationship with these mezcaleros.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah. So if this is like the Nuestra Soledad one. So for example, Tío Pedro and his family make this one. This is an espadín. So all of these will kind of be different colors. It's 6 of these, 6 different towns, all working with the same varietal, which is espadín. So that's part of like the Nuestra Soledad line. And yeah,
Monica,
these are the normal El Jolgorio bottles that people normally see.
Can you talk about
Sorry?
lot size? Like how many bottles would you produce per run?
For El Jolgorio?
Like in general, but yeah.
Yeah. So for Jolgorio, the black ones that you guys have all tasted through now, they're like things like the Jabali, for example, are I think the lowest I've seen is about 120 bottles. So you can go anywhere from 120 bottles to 600 bottles in 1 year, and that's it. So those are like the annual releases. They only come out once a year. These guys, which are like the clear ones, they can range anywhere from 300 bottles. This is actually 390, You guys can see that. 390 bottles. And these will have maybe like 2 or 3 editions come out in a year. It won't always be from the same producer, which is why it's so important for people to look at the information that we've always been very transparent about that. The edition, who the Maestro Mezcalero is, where it's coming from, that will always be in the bottle. And so it won't always come from the same producer, just so that we don't stress out that area if there isn't as much available. That's why we said like sometimes they will switch around. But yeah, these can be anywhere from 2 to 3 editions a year of 390. Sometimes they go up to 600, depending on the agave. The Pistaches can sometimes have like 800. I've seen some batches have 800 bottles, which isn't a lot if you think about it. And those will come out maybe like twice a year. And the Nuestra Soledad, which is Espadín, these can range anywhere from 300 bottles to about 1,000 bottles, 900 bottles to 1,000 bottles for San Luis del Rio, for example. So San Luis del Rio is the place where the tepezate was made. The sons have taken over now, the 2 youngest sons who have been working with Don Rafa for the last 15 years. So they're the ones now continuing to produce Nuestra Soledad San Luis del Rio. And yeah, and these can come out like 3-4 batches of these a year. And Agave de Cortes is a little more, anywhere from like 2,000 bottles a batch. 1,000 bottles to 2,000 bottles a batch of that. And maybe like 3 batches a year, 3-4 batches a year. So the availability of agave de Cortes is a lot higher because it's fully cultivated. It's my uncle is still producing that one with his son, so there's just a lot more obviously control, and we're able to produce a little bit more of that one. The further you get into like the Jolgorio, the less bottles you can get. And it's something we always like to emphasize to consumers and like the importers and the distributors. It's you really can't expect us to bring out a lot of Jolgorio. You shouldn't expect it to be a lot and super available all the time. If we're really wanting to respect the time that the plant takes or needs to fully mature, and then the whole process it takes for it to get produced. Right. Yeah, so let's see. Oh, okay. So first time for some of you trying the mezcal. Oh, wow. Oof. Yeah, these are great, and I love them. But for first time drinkers, they can sometimes be a little much. I'm glad you guys liked
You've
it.
got no one
They
on
are
here that's you've got, sorry to make it clear, you've got no one on here that's a first time drinker. Everyone here,
okay.
they're
Okay.
experienced spirit drinkers.
Okay. Oh yeah, it does
But
says
within mezcal, you've got some varying levels of experience. You know, I know
Okay.
Jared and Neil for sure have a lot more experience than me. I've got a decent amount of experience. I know Dimitri and I think it was Chris.
Yeah.
They're
We're noobs as far as like
they're
mezcal
really
goes.
starting out
This has been
in
amazing.
mezcal, not starting out in spirits, but starting out in mezcal. I know
Right. Yeah.
Ruben and Matt have a lot more experience in mezcal than me. So you've got some folks like me that are kind of in the middle. You've got some folks that are just starting their mezcal journey, and then you've got I know when I was at Ruben's place, like what are those Your Oaxaca line that you had that just about blew me away, the crap.
They're illegal bottles, like they're not commercially available.
Yeah.
You
Like
brought them in
the
the
guy,
plastic bottles then.
yeah, and the guy brings them over to the States. He puts them into glass bottles and then he ships them out throughout the States. But they're not all the only information I have on them is the producer, the agave, the ABV, and like there's no there's no fancy stuff. It's just delicious.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah, yeah, and even for like new, even if you've had mezcal in the past and it hasn't been the best, yeah, these can be a little overwhelming for some people, and which is totally understandable. There's a lot going on. But I promise, once you've drank enough of it and you've gotten to taste through different varieties, you'll kind of start seeing certain patterns with how certain species taste. You'll definitely start picking up a lot more notes and just tastes that you'll get on your palate. Yeah, it's a very interesting category. I love it. I don't love it just because I work with it and it's part of family's business, but it honestly is a very we always say it is spirit. It does have a spirit. It's like a lady, right? It's a woman and she likes to be treated nicely and likes to be kissed. So you got to sip it to fully appreciate this spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone right now is kind of going on the websites, the stores in Ontario, and seeing what's available. I think the fan fave, Monica, is the Tepestate overall, um,
That's a good one.
which is funny enough because that's probably the least expensive one. My
It is
favorite
probably
my favorite one was
Jet.
the Tobasiche.
Kovacic.
My favorite one, Tobasiche.
Yeah.
But looking at everyone's kind of thoughts there, I think overall,
It's a Tepestate.
I think yeah.
Tepestate and the Tobasiche are tied in my book because they're both freaking magical and
They're-
really,
they're
really,
magical.
really close behind them, the TSM Americano.
Yeah,
But
that's TSMR. Okay, you know.
none
I
of
love
them
that
beat my favorite mezcal in the world, and that is this one.
Oh,
What's that?
Sent you a
that's
sample.
so. How
I
many
have a
bottles are on
sample of
that
it.
one?
340.
Matthews. Yeah,
340.
that
It's-
one tends to be some of the smaller batches. Some yeah.
I go to a desert island and I have to take one of each spirit with me. This is the mezcal that I bring.
So that is actually made by Don Chucho. So that's the Kerwinsky you guys had. Yeah. He makes Tepestat as well. He's done, like I said, a ton of different varieties. And this Cavalli is, yeah, it's one of the most labor intensive ones. It's one of the most tedious ones to work with in terms of agaves. Most mezcaleros that have access to this agave choose to not work with it because it's such a pain in the butt. It foams up a lot. It has like this high concentration of this compound called saponin, which foams up a lot. And so during the fermentation process and especially during the distillation step, it has sometimes like shot up the top part of the still. So and then it creates this like mess and it's sticky and mescaleros are like, yeah, I know. So Chucho, so it's a very also complicated one to work with. Like you have to be very careful. It requires a lot of patience, and a lot of experience. Yeah, to make it as good as he does. Yeah.
Eric Lorenz chiming in again. To the guest that was a huge fan of that Habali. Shameless plug. There are 2 cases available of that guy available in Alberta to those stores previously mentioned, and that I think probably a lot of you guys order from wherever you are in Canada anyway. So they can order from Connect Logistics, and just 2 cases available.
He has WS,
Yeah.
so that's where I got mine.
Oh, okay. So it could be a
In,
different batch.
Calgary.
Then if you got it, what you did get it, you got it in the U.S. or Calgary? What did you say? I'm sorry.
He has W in Calgary.
Oh, very good. So then there you go. And Tepestate, I just saw that question. That's going to be the batch that is. So on Tepestate batches, we have had different. I just see that question is a Tepestate 25-year age. That guy, that batch that is the available batch here. It's just, there's 1 case, and they may have some in stock at BSW or Zinn, or they can just order it. So you just call the store and say, hey, I want to get this, and can you order me this? And that's what's in stock at Connect Logistics, but just 1 case left.
Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Eric.
I just saw it's edition 23. Yeah, that's it's been sitting there for a bit then. Yeah, it's a nice one. Yeah, that's like wasn't Matt, you're here. It was 31, 32. Those are
The current ones.
those are like last ones. They were, right? Yeah. Okay. Something about the puntas. Yeah. Legally to call it mezcal, the highest it can be is 55. Obviously there is higher
52.3,
ABV mezcals that are
52.3.
still mezcals, but legally to export it, 55 is the cup. But if you come to Oaxaca, you can drink puntas all day long.
It was still strength when I was seeing these like 54, 55. So you guys proofed them down to reach that 55 ceiling.
Yeah, well, they come out, so they tend to use a lot more puntas to just like bring them out initially, and then whether they bring it down with a little bit of colas or a bit of water and colas, they tend to do that normally. They don't drink puntas all the time, so they do tend to bring it down a little. Yeah. But honestly, puntas, when you do have the chance to try them, there's a lot going on there. I think 65 is probably the max that I would do. Anything after that is just it just gets a little too much, a little too overwhelming. 65 is a nice, I think, point where there's a lot, the flavors in the mezcal are just even more pronounced. But you're obviously going to fall asleep a lot faster.
Okay. I want to cut the recording here. So thanks, Matt, for setting this up. Thanks, Monica. I think everyone's impressed here.